media and in the workplace and like just in society in general. Like the last few years we've seen a big increase in what's known as rape culture, where like rape victims are discriminated against and there's excuses made for rapists and other attacks on women. And there's other issues that affect all of the women, like the pay gap between men and women in Ireland is one of the highest in Europe. There's been constant attacks by the government, specifically targeting women. Long parents have been targeted, children's allowance has been slashed actually, maternity benefit has been reduced in the last couple of years. This has all played a much bigger role on women in Ireland rather than men, and especially tax families. Cuts to public sector workers, teachers and nurses, and barely will go into that, but she comes, are also playing a big impact. And there's also a big lack of choice for women in this country at the moment, due to extremely high childcare costs, some of the highest in Europe. Women don't have the opportunity to work full time, don't have the opportunity to study, so they're forced into really low paid, insecure jobs. And that's some of the reasons why we set Rosa. The reason why we called it Rosa was not just because of what it stands for, which is reproduction rights against oppression, sexism and austerity, but it's after two very famous Rosas who would all have worked in social care. The first one is Rosa Luxemburg, who was a socialist revolutionist in Germany, like in the early 20th century. She was a co-founder of the anti-war movement, and she was actually assassinated by a right-wing fascist group, and her body was just thrown. She and another person were killed. The other famous Rosa, which everyone I'm sure will hear of, is Rosa Parks. She was the she was involved in the American civil rights movement. She was the woman that was on the bus in Montgomery, Alabama, and she refused to move for a white person. So that sparked the not the beginning of the American civil rights movement, but it was a real symbol of it and a real turnaround in it. So she went on after that to be a very famous campaigner, and she was very well respected. But the group as well is there's a lot of Irish-based feminist groups in the country, but we are different because we don't want to base this around working class women. We want working class women to be involved in it. We want ordinary women to be involved in the group, and we want to include them in every way we can. We will. We have examples of feminism there where they say that equality among women has been achieved, and I think that's okay if you're coming from a middle class or a wealthy background. You have all opportunities at your fingertips, but if you're a working class woman, you just don't have you're not in the same situation. You don't have the same prospects. So that's one of the major differences with Rosa. So I will hand it up to Martina now, and she's going to tell us.
I'm Martina. I was 16 and I was posted into a fight with a girl. I wasn't involved in it. I actually met the two girls and the police pulled in, and the lady pulled up the car, walked by me. But because I was and I wasn't destitute, by the way, I was just from a working class at the time. When the police charged me, brought me to court, and I was put in. I was originally actually sent to I never knew that. I actually always thought I was sent to Gloucester Street. I was sent to St. Anne's and Kilmacourt for an education. But because I had been there previous on remand and for stealing oranges and that, because I would bow down to the nuns, they actually said they wouldn't take me. So the police brought me to Gloucester Street Convent. So that's where I presumed I was sent to. So I was made work in the laundry for 2 solid years. But now in the meantime, I met a lot of women there, and I'd say there were 300 that was there. 100 of them had babies, mostly they were rich people. They probably had a baby from a farm, and then they got the religious, the priests and nuns got involved. So they would take the girl away, put her into a mother's and baby home, and then make her mind the baby for 4 or 5 months, and then take the baby off her and send her to Gloucester Street to work out her penance for committing sin. A lot of the women were sent from orphanages, which I met them The only crime was they were too good looking because they were 10 men couldn't control themselves if they looked at them. A lot of them were sent there because maybe they were rebelling against the nuns, so that was their punishment, sent them to Gloucester Street. And the state did send mostly the working class children to the laundries. I will agree with that, because they were poor and they wouldn't maybe have any solicitors, so they never spoke up for themselves and weren't allowed to speak up for themselves. So the police and the probation officer did, and then they were sent to the laundries. But most of the time I know there was other people, the court sent them to training units. It never ended up in the training units, I ended up in Magdalene Laundries. So the state, the probation officers, the state, the social workers, everyone played these, and nobody followed where the children went to. No one followed where I went to for 2 years. I mean, nobody knew. I don't even think the courts knew where I was. And yet they sent me to St. Anne's, but no one knew where I was. But my mother found out. My mother, they tried to change my name, and my mother wouldn't allow it. And the abuse we got there was unreal. It was really bad. But it was like the women was to blame for everything. The nuns were made constantly, day in, day out, making them work for penance, saying that they were bad women, they were tempting men, that was their fault. And if the worst part of it was when you left, they still put the fear of God in it, that when you're talking we couldn't bring in A&E, they got on, and they said we were street destitute people. Now, I wasn't destitute, I wasn't a street person, I certainly didn't have a baby when I was in Gloucester Street, you know, and that they took us in to goodness of their heart and gave us a home and looked after us, and we worked to keep for our food. We got very little food, and we worked from 9 to 5, maybe 9 to 6. Then we also had to do sewing for extra money to buy, say, shampoo, soap, face cloth. We'd actually do work for that, like make beads or do canting or embroidery. But if we didn't do that, then we meant to use carbonic soap. So they exploited us anyway. You know, they got money out of us anyway. But yeah, when we did all the canting and things like that, we never got money into our hands. What I got when I was leaving after 2 years, I got 2 brown pennies shoved into my hand, and out to go to home and my time was up. So, I mean, they really exploited us and used us and let us. There were violence, which Magdalene's report, I actually sat at that report. I saw a witness the violence, the beatings, and I got it myself. He said there was nobody mentioned violence, and that was a lie. About 100 of us that don't mention violence, and because they were quite violent, mental and violent, physically abusive. And they were constantly thrown back that no one wanted us outside. They were there to look after us and mind us, and they tried to just soul mind. I mean, I know people that are just completely gone. And my friend now is up to taking a nervous breakdown because she spent so much time in the Magdalenes. Plus, they used to bring people outside. Dickie Rock used to come in and sing. But I mean, I have always waited for that man, and I never once has he ever mentioned of coming into Gloucester Street and singing for the women, and he did, but because he got free housekeeping, because I know the women that went down and don't free housekeeping for it, and thought that was a privilege, God loved them, you know, to do that. Now I said I'd bide my time and wait and see would he ever come out. He's never interviewed us, he's never done it, but now I've done it for him. I've given an interview and told people he's done it, and because I was actually, the night that I was there, I was actually taken out Gloucester Street I got up to leave because I was hanging aside and passed on the mark, and the other pig said something, I don't know what it was, and I just kept walking, and I ended up in hospital that night. And even the nuns again, in the hospital I was in the ward, and because a nun came into the ward, she knew I was a Magdalene child, and I called myself a child, 16, and she wouldn't even say good morning to me. She would walk by my desk and she'd go up to all the other patients and she'd be all over them, and she would just kind of look as if I was a piece of dirt in the bed. And now them days we were going back then, it'd be 10 days. I was 4 days ago shifted back to my Gloucester Street Common, then I was put up to the infirmary at the top. for an old woman that was dying, and she did die a day during the night, and I was pissed when she died. Not that I was sorry for her, because I had no feelings in there. I didn't really care what she did or died, and she died in the care either. It's terrible, they stripped you from everything. They did that, they blocked you from anything. Thank God I got on. Sorry about that. I have to, but that's okay. Sorry, I'm just getting treatment, and it's not that I'm emotional about this, I'm just getting treatment that I know at the moment. But they had some wet conditions. They would come and when you'd be walking in the day, you'd be slapped in the head if you tried to talk to someone. You weren't allowed to talk, you weren't allowed to open your mouth to anyone. Six of us had to go in and use the warm water for a bath on a Saturday. And you couldn't get into the bath in your nude, you'd have to, because you had to keep your purified body, you'd have to wear a white thing over you. And you'd have to get out of the bath and you'd be drowned. And then if you wet the floor, you'd be splattered. And also, which another thing was fire hazard as well, and they didn't have it, but we had. We slept right up the very, very top. And they had big rooms, longer than them again. But the bottom was like painted, so painted that it wouldn't open, but the top came down. And the bars that width, so if there was a fire you wouldn't have got out. You know, you were born to death, which has still down, so I think it's somewhere in Cork or somewhere. Magdalene women were born to death in the fire. But now they're justifying themselves trying to say that they took in destitute women. But I'd like to get that rectified. They weren't destitute. They were women that fell pregnant. Most of the women were well to do in the country, and the men were well to do. So the shame, it was a stigma that, you know, as everybody knows, it was a stigma to have a baby. Even when I was in court, my mum wasn't married when she had two of us. On my court documents, you're not going to read what's on it. It has illegitimate, when I was 16, good eyesight. That's what's on my court record. Now, when I read it there a few weeks ago, when I got them, I couldn't believe it. I knew what had my eyesight got to do with it, which meant was, wherever I go, I could walk for them because I had good eyesight. You know, and that was 40 years ago, you know what I mean? And they're just, the nuns, they run, and they're still doing it today. They're still getting the power to do it today, and somebody has to stop them. The government giving the religious orders the power to abuse people, and it's still going on. You know, even in, like, you see it in depressions and all, but like the Magdalenes now, I mean, it's just, they're just justifying everything. They're trying to say that the women were destitute, you weren't, and I know that for a fact. And most of them came from, God loved them, if they were rebelling in an orphanage, just say now, one of the nuns hit them and didn't answer back. They were shifted to actually mental institutions, and that is a fact. They were put into them, and also to the Magdalene Laundries. And I know loads that didn't end up in Magdalene Laundries, they ended up in Grange Garment, or what's it called, Norman's, yeah, and some other, it's closed now, Portran. I know a girl that was sent there to Portran. She was only 15 and she was sent to Portran because she stopped the nun hitting her. The next day she was shifted to a mental home because they said she was violent. And all she did was put her hand up and grab the stick, that was all. And that's the power they had. And they're still justifying it by saying that we were street people when we went in, and that's it. They're still justifying it, so what can I say? No, the company won't stand up to them. You know, they won't pay us. They said it out straight, they're not paying us. Didn't they? The sister charity said there's no way they're not paying any compensation money out to us. And I mean, we worked very hard, I could mention every B&B, every guest house, everybody and all the hospitals put their stuff in there. We worked hard. I mean, sure to God, one day, the work we done was fed us for a month. Now, just what they're saying, that we worked for a week just to feed ourselves. That's all I